I'm Dr. Carine of Integrative.com. Today, as part of our Back to School series, we're going to talk about battling anxiety. You know, it's totally normal to have a little bit of worry, concern, anticipation, and small amounts of anxiety in a normal change in our environment. We worry about anxiety being concerning when it's prolonged or it's affecting a lot about your life. When it comes to children, this can look very different. And so today we're going to talk about the signs of anxiety in children, the kind of science of the way our bodies metabolize and create anxiety, and then what we can do from a supplement standpoint to address anxiety in children. What does anxiety look like in children? Well, it can look really different. Some children, but not very many, will actually say to their parents, I'm really worried all the time, or I'm worried this is going to happen, or I'm upset about this happening. But that's not really typical. When we talk about small children who are not real great at expressing the way they feel, it comes out in different ways. One of the things that comes out most commonly is that they're very resistant to change. And so what might look like a stubborn child or a difficult child who doesn't want to eat new things or wear new things or go to new places or meet new people can really be driven by a sense of anxiety within that child. Of course, we need to help them mature and overcome that anxiety, but we also need to think to ourselves, maybe this child is suffering from more anxiety than I realize. The other thing that can happen is children can go to school and their teachers can say, your child's great, they never get in trouble, they're always happy, and they seem to have no trouble when they're in school. They get along well with everyone, they follow the teacher's instructions, but really what's happening inside of that child is that they're holding all of those emotions in out of their fear of getting in trouble. And so you see anxiety children will come home after these fantastic reports at school and just have terrible behaviors at home. Irritability, meltdowns we often refer to them as, and just kind of inconsolable, difficult, and irritable behavior. That's because they used all of their coping energies during the day under those situations that they were worried about getting in trouble for. And then they let out all that pent-up emotions when they got home with the people they feel most safe with. And that's really common in children with anxiety. The other thing that can happen in children who struggle with anxiety is they come home to their parents and they describe these situations at school as being very difficult. They were being bullied, they were being picked on, they were really upset, so-and-so hurt their feelings. And of course, children do that kind of things all the time. The other thing that's really interesting about most children, though, is they're also very resilient. So although they might be upset about something on Tuesday, by Wednesday they're playing again with that child, and they kind of get upset, and they forgive, and they get upset, and they forgive. But if your child seems to be coming home upset a lot, you would start to have to think to yourself, maybe my child isn't perceiving the events of what's going on at school the same as everyone else. And that would be another sign that we should look into anxiety. So what does it look like in a teenager? Well, that can be really different. Anxiety is going through the roof in our statistics with the National Institutes of Health in teenagers. And some of that is related to the biochemistry in our body and the factors that are affecting our health in our environment, from toxins in our environment and our food supply and nutritional deficiencies that we have. Those contribute to rising incidences of anxiety in our children. But we also have, of course, this changing environment of stressors that our bodies really weren't built for. Teenagers in most of humanity's history were going off to become adults. They were getting married in their teenage years and they were becoming warriors or working in their communities. And we've prolonged this childhood into a longer period of time and piled on more and more responsibilities that are a little bit different than we were originally built to do. And this is causing some shift in anxiety for our teenagers. And you see it coming across in all sorts of different ways in those teenage years. They can have difficulty concentrating, they can have restlessness, they can have sleep problems, they can have unexplained outbursts, they can start to be isolated. And so when you start to see your teen really struggling, don't write that off as just, it's normal teenage behavior. Some of it can be, but if you, again, are seeing it over a longer period of time, it's interrupting with kind of normal things of life, then that would be something that you'd be more concerned about. There are three main things that contribute to anxiety in our brain when we talk about it from the biochemistry or the physiology of our body. There's the neurotransmitters that actually control our brains, like serotonin, dopamine, and epinephrine. Serotonin is probably our most potent anxiety and depression neurotransmitter, but we really are a concert of a lot of those in our brains. We have inflammation factors in our brain, which a lot of people don't talk about, but they can be related to raising the inflammatory markers in our bloodstream that kicks up and changes those neurotransmitters by the effect of the inflammatory system. And so you see sometimes anxiety is worse during periods of allergies or infections that can affect inflammation in the brain. And so we also use treatments to affect inflammation when we're trying to address anxiety. And the last of which is that we're starting to realize that our bowel flora, all those little bacteria that live in our bowels, release chemicals that affect and change both of those categories, both our inflammatory systems and our neurotransmitters, that make our brain function in different ways. So now we're realizing the bacteria that live in our bowels also affect our brain health in a rapidly changing science that we understand now. So as we go to solve this, what do we do? Well, first of all, sleep is a huge part of the way our brain works. So if you don't sleep well at night, any of us, doesn't matter who we are, say we had a bad night, we couldn't sleep, the fire trucks were on the street, anything. We had to go pick up grandma at the airport in the middle of the night. The next day, we're going to feel different. Maybe we'll feel tired, maybe we'll feel irritable or foggy, or maybe we'll be anxious, or maybe we'll snap at people easier. So sleep affects our brain chemistry dramatically. It's very, very important that we sleep well. But on a more complicated standpoint, when you look at sleep studies, people with anxiety also often have sleep abnormalities in their brainwaves while they're sleeping. So these are intertwined. That's why it's really important that you always address sleep when you're talking about anxiety. And we did that video last week about getting good sleep and the supplements we can use for sleep, so I want to reference that. But you definitely want to make sure everyone is sleeping well and getting good quality sleep. The other thing we can do that are not related to supplements, of course, is learning relaxation techniques, making sure we have good connections within our community, because community relationships help build good endorphins and make us feel better about ourselves. You want to learn mindfulness techniques or cognitive behavioral therapy, which both help us access our frontal lobes and downregulate those senses of anxiety. We can practice having less anxiety from an actual day-to-day routine through learning some of those techniques. But if you feel like all of that doesn't work, getting better sleep and mindfulness and good relationships, then we probably ought to start thinking about maybe there's some supplements or some medications that we might need to work on. Today we're going to talk about some of the supplements, not all of them, that we use in patients with anxiety. There are three main categories of the ways that we address it. We just talked about those things that contribute to our brain chemistry for anxiety, and I'm going to put those supplements in that category. So there is neurotransmitters and what we can take to affect our neurotransmitters, inflammation in our brain and what we can do to affect and reduce that inflammation, and then our bowel flora and what can we do about that. So with neurotransmitters, we're going to talk about B12 and the other B vitamin family, theanine, which is one of our amino acids, which is known to have calming effects to the brain, and magnesium, which is of course a mineral that helps calm brain cells down and lessens anxiety. Some of the supplements we have that look like that are, this is magnesium in a really yummy powder that goes into water for children. Sometimes getting things in children is tricky, and this has been a real blessing to our supplement store for getting magnesium into children in a more regular way. We also have different forms of B vitamins, both B complexes and individual Bs. Today I'm just going to talk about a couple. This is our favorite and probably our best seller, which is the methyl CPG. The B vitamins in here are in a form called methylated Bs, which help if you have deficiencies in the way that you process B vitamins. This particular product is my favorite because it has 2,000 micrograms of folate, methylfolate, that is very unique in products because that particular product is very expensive. So in a lot of products it may have some methylfolate but not nearly as much. This one has a lot more than most products do, which is why it's our favorite. We also have these really small B12 and folate lozenges that are small chewables that taste good. This is one of our best sellers because as we look at children and we want to put B vitamins into their diet, this is a very easy way to do that if they aren't pill swallowers. We have theanine capsules, and we have a whole bunch of other products that contain theanine to help with calming. And then we have some products that are blends, products that affect our neurotransmitters through herbal botanicals and blends of those herbs and botanicals, and sometimes they're blends that include both B vitamins and minerals and botanicals, or just botanicals. So for instance, Adrenavive has a botanical complex in it with ashwagandha, skullcap, theanine, phosphatidylserine, and this is a whole blend designed to help us deal with stress in our adrenal glands and the way that we respond to stress, which of course is related to anxiety. This product is called Botanicalm. This is a great product because this is just herbal products like chamomile and passion flower and hops that help us deal with stress, and it acts immediately, so we can take that under times of stress in the morning or maybe just before a test to help us calm down, and it has more of an immediate effect. The other great thing about it is it's good for tummy aches because a lot of people who have anxiety also have tummy aches, and Botanicalm gives us a nice blend of herbs that both help with anxiety and ease crampy or irritable bellies. Serenity is one of the products we were talking about that have B vitamins and botanicals together. It also has some other neurotransmitter building products in it like 5-HTP and GABA and inositol mixed together with B vitamins. It's a great product that looks at a broad way of affecting neurotransmitters through biochemistry. We've had some other videos lately that covered some of these other topics, but I'm going to briefly mention that these are other ways we affect anxiety. Valerian root is used for improving REM sleep, which is often abnormal in patients with anxiety, and so we did a whole video last week on sleep, and valerian root was one of the things we covered. Omega-3 fatty acids is known to help us with our brain inflammation and thereby our neurochemistry in our brain. These are small omega juniors that we use for young children. They can either bite them or swallow them whole because they're small. And then these are two forms of enhancer, which is our favorite form of curcumin. Curcumin reduces brain inflammation and detoxifies the brain. We did a whole video on curcumin, and you can access that in our library. The last thing we have here with us today is a high-dose probiotic. Probiotics vary in lots of different ways. When we use a high-dose probiotic, what we're actually trying to do is provide enough probiotic to cause a shift in the bacteria that are in your bowels to get rid of any organisms that might be causing anxiety through the signals that they secrete. These products are seen as more like a cleanse to shift and change the way your bowel flora work. And in that regard, sometimes we get mood changes from them. Whatever we do for anxiety, you definitely want to feel better. Having our children go to school overwhelmed with their senses of things that are going on in their body and coming home exhausted can be just emotionally wrenching for their families. And of course, we need to be compassionate to them because although we may feel like they're being overreactive to the events of their life, this is a real feeling in their body. Their brain is reacting to the stress in their environment in an abnormally responsive way, but to them it is just that upsetting as they are expressing to you. So as we go forward, we want to make sure that we address their needs, both from those support ways of community and calming down techniques, and then of course finding the right supplements for them if they need it. If you have any questions, you can find it at purelyintegrative.com, where our knowledgeable staff can answer anything that you have and help you choose the right product in taste or dose or size for you and your child. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.